If you've ever bought something trendy, uncomfortable, or just totally unnecessary because you thought you should, you're in the right place. After so many of you resonated with part 1 of this video, I am back with 10 more things that I have stopped buying now that I'm 30. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's see how many of those resonate with you. The first thing that I stopped buying is totally dependent on lifestyle, but for me, I have actually not bought any specific going out outfits in the past maybe 5 years or so. And when I was in my early 20s, I would oftentimes buy a dress, pair of shoes, bags, tops, anything that was just specifically for going out, going clubbing, bars, anything like that. And what I've realized is that, number one, I am not the kind of person that likes to go out very, very often. I would say maybe I would go out once, maybe twice a week, and that's really, really pushing it. I am much more of a stay-at-home kind of person, and when I go out, I still want to be relatively comfortable, and so I wouldn't buy something that is uncomfortable, that is very clubby, and that I can't wear anywhere else, because to me, that seems like not a great use of my money. And so what I've started doing is that rather than buying a going out top or going out shorts or anything like that, I would buy pieces that I genuinely like and I can wear in my day-to-day life. But then maybe I would wear a pair of shorts with a nice shirt and a blazer for when I'm working from home. But then I could actually wear the same thing with maybe a slightly more revealing or open top and let that be my date night or a night out outfit. And I'm perfectly happy with that. Same thing with certain tops. Maybe I can wear that when I'm going around and running errands, and maybe if I wear that with heels and maybe some really interesting jewelry, that now becomes my going out outfit. And so what I've realized is that the number of items you have should be kind of proportionate to how much time you spend in your life doing that activity. And so because going out is such a small category for me, I don't think for me it's necessary to buy going out pieces. And I totally understand if you're someone that maybe goes on dates every single day or really likes to go out and meet people, you might need a part of your wardrobe to do just that. But for someone that doesn't really do that this often, I just feel like this is something that I no longer want to spend money on. Point number 2 can be a bit controversial because I know there's so many people that love this kind of items, but that is big eyeshadow palettes, especially those ones that have all the colors of the rainbow. Now, I used to be that person that was very, very focused on value for money and having a lot of different options. And so a lot of those rainbow palettes really appealed to me because you could get a lot of colors, and usually it would be a lot cheaper to get a 35-piece eyeshadow palette than to get a 12 eyeshadow palette. However, one thing I've realized is that practicality is quite important to me. And so number one, if I'm traveling and I have oftentimes just limited amount of space because I'm traveling only with hand luggage, I don't want to be carrying a palette that is bigger than my face because it does take up space and it's also heavy. The same thing applies if I am wearing eyeshadows and then I want to take the palette with me because I may want to reapply halfway through the day. And so again, if it was one of those big palettes, I just never ended up carrying them with me. And so all the time I would reach out for my smaller palettes anyway. And so what was the point in buying those big rainbow palettes when I never really ended up using them? Now, if you're someone that maybe wears eyeshadows on a day-to-day basis and you really love experimenting with colors, then this kind of palette might make sense for you and your lifestyle. But I've been absolutely loving Angelica Nikves. Her videos have absolutely inspired me in the past couple of years. But one thing that I've noticed is that she does wear really strong makeup on a day-to-day basis in her videos and even when she is kind of going out and about. And for me, in the past, let's say, I wouldn't have that many reasons to put on kind of stronger makeup. But even now when I'm filming once or twice a week, I just found that I never really wear that much eyeshadow regardless. And so for me, I have really downsized my collection, and right now I only have 2 different palettes. One is on its last legs and one that I bought specifically because I found that those pinks, purples and browns are honestly the colors that I reach out for the most. And even though I still see sometimes those palettes that have blues and greens and oranges and those really beautiful colors, I see them and for a moment I have this desire to go and buy them. I've never really pulled the trigger because I just keep reminding myself that while I love how they look, I never really used them when I had this kind of palettes. And so it's much better off for me to buy a smaller, more curated palette with colors that are wearable and applicable for my day-to-day life. Number 3 is something that I know a lot of you actually agree with me on, and that's because you found me through my capsule wardrobe videos. But I stopped buying any of those those must-have capsule wardrobe pieces. You know what I mean, the trench coat, the striped long sleeve, the white t-shirt, the black jeans, and all of that. If you try looking for capsule wardrobes online, you'll oftentimes see the same pieces being recommended over and over again. But what I've realized is that those capsule wardrobe pieces are applicable for a very specific type of person. And I'm not talking here about body types or even color seasoning. I'm literally talking about lifestyle. Because there might be people that never ever really need a white t-shirt because they need to be quite formal in their workplace. And so they definitely need more blouses and shirts. And on the other hand, you might be a stay-at-home mom running after her 3 kids and you never really have a need for a button-up shirt. And so for me, my lifestyle has definitely changed over the past 10 years. And I have realized that those must-have pieces have sort of stayed the same in the recommendations, but my desire and my need to use them has definitely changed. And so right now, I think that the most important factor whenever you're making a capsule wardrobe and you're trying to curate the pieces that work for you is to actually analyze your lifestyle. And what are the kind of things that you do on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis, and what sort of clothes you actually need and what kind of clothes you actually enjoy wearing. Because you might, for example, be someone that can wear a t-shirt, but also, do you actually like wearing a t-shirt? It might be something that doesn't resonate with your personal style. And so the biggest lesson in here, and something that I make sure to recommend to all of my clients and in any of my capsule wardrobe videos, is to consider your lifestyle and your personal preferences rather than buying any of those pieces from a specific list. The next point is something that I know can be quite challenging to resist, and that is buying things in the it color of the year. So you know how the Pantone Institute picks a color every single year, and here are the trendy colors of the past 5 years. And what happens is that we start to see clothes, shoes, accessories in that specific color being pushed in stores around us, and you start seeing more and more people wearing them. And I have to admit that when I was younger, in my early 20s, I would oftentimes really buy into this trend because I thought that if I'm wearing the trendy color, especially if I have multiple pieces, I'm going to appear fashionable and trendy and like I know what I'm doing. When in reality, it was actually just showing that I am trendy rather than anything about my personal style or my personal preferences. And what would often happen is that I would end up buying top, bottom, shoes, jacket in a trendy color, only for me to have to buy those same things in a new variation the next year. And so it felt like a giant waste of money, and it didn't allow me to find my personal style. Now, after doing my color analysis 2 years ago, I have been a lot more picky with what colors I bring into my wardrobe, and I have also become less and less interested with what is the color of the year and what other people are wearing. But at the same time, especially if you have to go into shops from time to time, it's inevitable that you're going to see pieces or colors that you actually enjoy. And so the rule that I've made for myself is that if I do like the color of the year, I am okay with either buying one thing perhaps in that color just to test it out, and it has to be a piece that I genuinely love and I'm not buying just because of the color. And I'll also try and find a piece secondhand because I do try to be a little bit more sustainable when bringing new things into my wardrobe. And so for example, for this year, butter yellow as a color, I do enjoy it. I don't think it suits me very well because it's quite a warm color. It's also very light. And so I've decided that when I found this really kind of icy yellow blouse, it is a good enough version for me. I'm very happy with it and I love the blouse. So I have bought that, and this is something that makes me feel like I am maybe a little bit more up to date with fashion, while at the same time this being 100% my style piece. And another thing that I've started doing, especially with colors that I don't necessarily like to wear on me, but I do like as colors, is actually buy them in nail polish version. And so again, for butter yellow, I just bought a butter yellow nail polish that was £10, and that is it. The craving for that newness and visual interest is satisfied, while at the same time, I'm not buying any more clothes into my wardrobe. The next thing might be a little bit controversial because I know people feel quite differently about fast fashion, but I used to do fast fashion hauls, and that is something that I no longer do. So my opinion on fast fashion has gone from I love it because it's so cheap and I can buy everything, to fast fashion is the devil, I should never buy anything from there, to now having a slightly more moderate opinion. And that is because I've realized that it is not so much where you buy your clothes from, but whether you actually use them and wear them and whether they last. And so what I would do in the past is I would go and buy 10 different things or 15 different things all at once, bring them home, and then I would end up only wearing maybe 3 or 4 of them. And the rest would still be with their tags in my wardrobe until I decided to declutter. And that was unsustainable, not just because they were from fast fashion brands, but also because I never ended up using those clothes because they were very much impulse buys and things that I didn't really want or need. And so right now, I would still try to buy stuff secondhand first. So I would try to find stuff in charity shops, on Vinted and everywhere else before buying new. But at the same time, I do know that if there is a specific piece that I really like and I want and I know I'm going to wear, I am okay with buying that from a fast fashion brand. But it is going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces, and that is it. And they really have to be considered purchases and be of really good quality. And I try to apply the same things when it comes to the speed with which I bring new things, because I want to be able to wear the new pieces that I have brought into my wardrobe. And I know that if I keep bringing 10, 15 things at a time, of course, I'm not going to be able to incorporate every single thing and actually give it a chance to shine in my wardrobe. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And now let's get back into the next point. Number 6 is a little bit of a vulnerable topic, but I know so many women like myself, we do it. And that is buying clothes for when I am at a different weight. And oftentimes it is when I am at a lower weight than I am currently at. So I used to buy clothes oftentimes that are a little bit too tight, a little bit too small on me, because I thought that they're going to kind of give me the push, the motivation to lose weight and get into better shape. And over the past 12 years that I have been doing this, I've realized that never ever have I lost weight because of fitting into clothes. And again, let me know if that has ever worked for you. People are different. But for me personally, if I've ever lost weight, it has always been for health reasons, because I want to feel better. There's some medical reason. But it has never been because I want to fit into these shorts or that dress that are just a little bit too tight. And something that I learned, especially over the past 2 years when my weight has been quite fluctuating, is that I realized that if I keep buying clothes for some future version of me that is going to fit into them, I am actively rejecting my current self and basically saying to myself that I do not deserve good clothes right now. And that actually felt really limiting, and letting go of that felt so liberating, because the moment I started to dress for my current self, I started to feel a lot better about myself. And that actually gave me the push and motivation to take better care of myself, which also sometimes included eating better, moving more, and as a result, perhaps losing a few extra pounds that allowed me to fit better into some clothes. But it was almost the opposite effect of trying to do it for specific purposes. And one of the biggest things I would say to my younger self is definitely to buy the clothes that fit you right now, not the clothes that you wish you could fit into. Because in that way, you're literally honoring your present self rather than some future fantasy version of you. The next item that I've stopped buying now that I'm 30 is something that is very challenging to do, because we are surrounded by content creators, influencers, and just social media people. But that is items that are influencer approved or influencer recommended. So one of the things that happened in my 20s was that I would follow a lot of those bloggers like Lydia Liz Millen, In The Fro, Tamara, and I would want to buy exactly the same clothes as they were wearing, especially if they happened to be from more affordable places. And so I would see the clothes on those influencers, order them, and then be so disappointed when the pieces came and I tried them on. And that is because oftentimes I didn't account for, number one, differences in height and weight, and oftentimes those items wouldn't actually look as good on me as they looked on that influencer. And number two is actually the personal style of that creator and how that may not actually match with mine. And that led to quite a few regret purchases. Some of them I was able to return, but some of them I kept for long enough and then they ended up sitting in my wardrobe and I never actually wore them. And so one thing that I've done is I've tried to unfollow a lot of people that constantly try to push new things. What I've tried to learn is actually to take inspiration from a certain influencer. And then if I really like the idea of a certain piece, maybe I really like the idea of a trench coat or a midi skirt or whatever, then I try to find something something secondhand, first of all, and then I also try to find something that suits my personal preferences. And so, yes, I may really love a look with a trench coat on that person, but then I've bought my trench coat to suit my coloring and my taste, and I am so much happier, even though that specific trench I haven't seen on a single influencer. And so the biggest lesson in here, I think, is that you need to find your personal style, your personal taste, and of course, use influencers, style bloggers as perhaps inspiration for how to combine colors or for the type of pieces you may want to buy. But don't copy and paste, because 99% of the time you're going to be disappointed because those items don't look the same on you or they don't suit your personal preferences. Point number 8 is all about quality. And again, you might have a slightly different opinion in here, but I no longer buy faux leather shoes and faux leather bags. So this is something that I know a lot of people do because they want to be vegan friendly. And another reason is obviously the price point, because real leather suede is oftentimes a lot more expensive than buying the vegan version. However, I realized that the problem with faux leather is that it is much less durable and much less comfortable, especially when it comes to shoes, compared to the real thing. And especially when it comes to shoes, I found that with genuine leather or suede, you may try something and it's like 99% comfortable, and then you wear it and it kind of molds around your foot. And that is because the material is natural, and so it kind of can take a different shape. But faux leather is basically plastic and it doesn't really mold around your foot. And so if a shoe is uncomfortable at first, it is not going to magically become comfortable. Same thing with bags. I have had a couple of bags that I really, really love that are made from faux leather. But the problem is that the moment this faux leather actually starts peeling, it is very hard to fix it in a way that looks good. Versus with natural leather, there are different ways that you can paint over it, you can actually moisturize it to refresh it, and it is just so much more longer lasting. And of course, I am going to acknowledge the fact that real leather and suede are a lot more expensive as fabrics, but that is why you can find so many really good pieces on second-hand websites, in charity shops, thrift stores, and because the material is durable, a lot of those bags are going to be in a much better condition compared to any of their faux leather plastic versions. And so if I had maybe £100 to spend, I would much rather buy something that's made out of the real thing compared to something that is made of vegan leather, because I think that is going to last a lot longer. The next item is something that I want to make a whole video about because I find it so interesting, and that is the topic of basic basics. So what I mean is this really plain white t-shirt or a plain tank top and all of those really basic pieces. And I know I talked about the capsule wardrobe and the must-haves, but let's say you've decided that you want to buy a t-shirt because a t-shirt is really suitable for your lifestyle and your preferences, and that's great. But the problem is that oftentimes we end up buying the most plain item because we think that because it is plain, it's going to be the most versatile. When in fact, I have found that for a lot of people, those very plain items are not really perfect. And I used to be that person that really liked interesting pieces and slightly more quirky and experimental style, but I ended up buying those very, very plain basic pieces. And so when I would put them on, especially if I would put them on together, I felt extremely uninspired, underdressed, understated, and then I would have to add a lot of jewelry or I would have to do a lot of makeup in order to feel at my usual level of visual interest. And those basics never ended up being worn. And so what I realized is that yes, the white t-shirt might be the perfect basic for someone like Christina Michels, who actually likes those more minimal styles. But for me, maybe I want a graphic t-shirt, and that is something that I would end up wearing so much more because the piece actually gives me the desired level of visual interest. Or instead of a t-shirt, it might be a blouse with a cutout or something else that is still very, very versatile, but it just has a little bit of a twist or something a little bit more elevated. And so the way that I look at basics is not just something that is versatile, but something that you're actually excited about wearing. Unless it's something that is a thermal layer, something that you wear always underneath, maybe a jumper or trousers. If it is something that is going to show, I think it's much better to spend money on something that you genuinely love and is versatile than to just buy the most plain basic piece. And taking it all the way to the other end of the spectrum, any clothes that are too fussy are no longer on my buy list. So what I mean by fussy pieces is anything that requires me to constantly adjust it. So whether that is skirts and shorts that are a little bit too short and I always have to pull them down, or an off-the-shoulder top that I have to pull down because it's riding up all the time, or anything that requires me to just constantly adjust it every 5 minutes, is not a good piece in my wardrobe. And that is because rather than me paying attention to what the other person is saying or how I'm presenting myself in a meeting, I'm constantly worried about this piece that I'm wearing and just like trying to pull it and adjust it in order for it to feel better. So yeah, I'm done with clothes that require me to spend so much energy on thinking about how I'm going to wear them. And nowadays I just choose pieces that are really good fit from the get-go and don't require adjustments. And so one thing I've started doing, especially if I'm buying something new or in a store where I can try it on, is I would spend 5 minutes in that piece. I would try walking around, squatting, moving my hands up and down just to see how this piece reacts. And if something is really fluffy in store, it is not going to magically get easier when you get home and start wearing it. And so no matter how much I love a piece, if I can't really wear it in a way that is very comfortable for me, I am not going to buy it. And that has been one of the biggest reliefs and has made getting dressed so much easier. So let me know which of those points resonated with you the most, and let me know what is something that you no longer bring into your wardrobe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!